Okay, Chairman, so we're now live on YouTube, if you'd like to commence the meeting. Thank you.
Good evening and a warm welcome to a virtual meeting of the Central and South Planning Committee of the London Borough of Hillingdon. This is a virtual meeting that is also being broadcast simultaneously on the Council's YouTube channel, Hillingdon, London. My name is Councillor Steve Tuckwell and I am the Chairman of this evening's meeting. As we are in an online format, we do have some online housekeeping that I will quickly run through. So can I ask that before we start, can we please ensure that mobile phones around us are left on silent? If you're using a microphone, please keep it away from your mouth so that there is no background noise. Only one person at a time should speak, and I, the Chairman, will call those to speak, and we'll keep an eye on the room through my gallery view for those that are indicating. Again, as we are in an online format, I will do an attendance roll call so that anybody viewing on YouTube can have an indication of who is actually participating this evening. So I will start with the voting members to start with. So I will start with the Vice Chairman this evening, Councillor Alan Chapman. If you could say you're present.
Present, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Duncan, Labour Lead.
Present, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Ahmed Walana.
I'm present, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Bira.
Present, Chairman.
Councillor Arnold.
Present, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Chamdal.
Here, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Tubadar.
Present, Chairman.
Thank you. And Councillor Dillon.
Present, Chairman.
Thank you. Liz, is that all the voting members accounted for?
Yes, it is.
Okay. I will also do a roll call for those officers that are supporting this evening's meeting. So I'll start with our planning officer, Meg Harani.
Present, Chairman.
Thank you. Head of planning, James Roger.
I'm present, Chairman.
Thank you. Democratic Services Officer this evening, Liz Penny.
Yes, present, Chairman.
Thank you. And our legal advisor, Kerry Munro.
Present, Chairman.
Thank you. I think we also will be joined by Alan Tilley, our highways officer, at some point throughout the meeting.
Chairman, Alan has joined us already.
Oh, excellent.
Thank you, Chairman.
Excellent. Welcome, Alan.
Thank you.
In terms of technical meeting control this evening, if any councillor leaves the virtual meeting anyway part through for a period of time, i.e. through a lost connection, I will continue the meeting unless we are not quorate, which we know is 3 councillors. Importantly, any councillor who does leave the meeting this evening for a period of time will not be able to vote on the item for which they are not present. Okay, that's a lot of the housekeeping arrangements have been organised. We can now move on to the main body of this evening's agenda. So we'll start with item number 1 this evening, apologies for absence. Liz?
Yes, apologies have been received from Councillor Nicola Brightman, and we have Councillor Simon Arnold substituting for her.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for Councillor Arnold for joining us this evening. Much appreciated. Okay, item 2 on the agenda this evening is declarations of interest in matters coming before this meeting. Councillor Duncan, you're indicating?
Yes, I would like to declare a non-pecuniary interest in item number 9. I haven't had any involvement in this, but I do live in the same road. It is a few doors away from me, and I think others would think that I would have a personal interest in it. So I will not take part in the discussion or the voting.
Okay, so I'll take it then you'll just be switching off your camera and muting your microphone for that particular item. Okay, good. Any other declarations of interest? I can't see anybody indicating. Okay, so I'll move on to item number 3 this evening, which is to receive and agree the minutes of our meeting of the 4th of June. Any indications and any changes to those minutes? Nobody's indicating. Okay, Liz, can we take those minutes as agreed?
All
I will,
agreed.
thank you. Yep, thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you, all agreed.
Thank you. That leads us on to item 4 of this evening's meeting, which is to confirm which items are in public and which items are in private. We do have 2 parts to this evening's meeting. At the end of part 1, we will be ceasing the YouTube feed and discussing a number of items in private. Okay, that leads us on to agenda item. Let me just take Lost my train of thought here. That leads us on to agenda item 6 this evening. Sorry, agenda item, that was agenda, got my teeth in. Agenda item 4, there have been no matters indicated as urgent, so there is nothing to take this evening. So that leads us into the main body of the agenda. We have 4 petition items this evening, so we have a number of statements which Liz will be reading out from petitioners, applicants and indeed ward councillors. And I think on that note, I can now pass agenda item 6 to Meg to take us through number 3, Newlyn Close, Hillingdon. Over to you, Meg.
Thank you, Chairman. This is an application relating to 3 Newlyn Close, which is a semi-detached property. The application is for the conversion of the property to a house in multiple occupation. The current property is a 5-bed semi-detached dwelling, 2 stories. It's extended. And the proposal is to provide a house in multiple occupation for 6 people. The site is located in a ward which has an Article 4 on it, which means that it requires planning permission for the change of use. Generally, anything up to occupation of 6 individuals wouldn't require permission, but this one does because it's covered by an Article 4. If I can take members to page 11 of the agenda, under the principle of development, the council's policy relating to changes of use to multiple occupation is set out in full on pages 11 and 12. And that clearly sets out the criteria which we are using to decide whether the siting of this HMO is acceptable. And in looking at that criteria, the case officer has clearly looked at the council's records in terms of the number of houses in multiple occupation which are registered with the council in this street, and there are no other records of HMOs in the street. Now, that isn't to say there aren't any HMOs. There may well be. There may be historical ones. There may be ones that are not authorised. There may be ones that are not licensed. The problem that the officers have is that we can only go on the information we have, which is set out in the policy, which says that they are recorded with the council's website or with the council's records, or either have planning consent. And the officer has checked the records for this street, and there aren't any recorded in this street. So in that sense, the proposal does comply with the policy, which requires that 15% maximum of the road can be in multiple occupation. There are no external changes to the property or internal change to convert one of the rooms into a bedroom, but there are no external changes proposed other than to increase the parking on the frontage, and there is a condition which covers that, recommending details of the permeable paving to be submitted to the council. If I can just take members through the present, the plans and photographs. So this is the site plan, just showing its location. There are, in essence, 12 properties in.
Mate, can I just come in there? I can't see the slides. I'm just seeing a screenshot of the grid.
I can't.
Anybody else can see that.
I can't see the presentation either.
Okay. Let me start again.
Yeah, that's better.
Is that better?
Yeah, I can see now.
Right, so this is the location plan, and again, which just shows the constraints in the area. This is not in a parking management area, and the site plan and the existing and proposed floor plans. As you can see, there aren't any. The only internal change relates to the provision of this kitchen and the addition of this bathroom. So other than that, there are no internal changes as well as external changes. It is a large property now with a 2-story extension to it, which means that, or not a 2-story, single-story extension, sorry, which means that there are ground floor bedrooms in the property. This shows the existing frontage and amenity space and the proposed. So there's an additional parking space being proposed here. And the aerial photograph and the properties as it is at the current moment. So externally, it would still look this way, other than to provide additional paving in here. We have requested that. Details of that are provided to us, and the adjoining properties. So in terms of complying with the council's policies, in the siting of it is acceptable, and all of the rooms comply with the room size requirements. And the parking requires 1 space per 2 bedrooms, so 3 spaces would comply, and the amenity space requirements are met. So the application does comply with all of the council's requirements, and we are recommending approval. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you for taking us through those, Meg. Now we have a number of statements that we need to share with the committee and indeed those watching us on YouTube. So, Liz, are you going to start with the petitioner's statement?
Yes, I'll start with the petitioner's statement, and then just at the end, there's a couple of slides that I'm going to ask Meg to show,
Okay.
which were submitted. So, petitioner's statement. The officer's report states the Borough has no record of 9 Newling Close being registered as an HMO. This is a glaring error in the report. 9 Newling Close is being used as an HMO and has been for quite a few years now, whether the council has a record of it or not. Please see the letting advert that I have attached as a screenshot, which you can find on the website on the market. Newpad are the letting agents, and we'll show that at the end. We also have a text message from the owner of number 9, which states that the council must know it's an HMO, as they only pay council tax in July and August when the students aren't resident. Increase in traffic and parking. The entrance to the close is very busy with a vet's practice. Though they have a car park, their customers spill out into the road at busy times. With the potential of another 6 more cars coming in and out of such a small close, it will be an accident waiting to happen. Also, the front area of number 3 does not look like the plans they sent to planning. Internal alterations being carried out. The building work started on the 22nd of January 2020. There were dust emissions and noise, which we and other residents complained about in our letters. Should we not have been made aware of control of environmental nuisance from construction work before it started? Putting that information in the report is a bit late now, as it's all been done. Noise pollution. Writing this as the homeowners of number 4 Newling Close, we are joined to this house, and the developer wants to rent it out to 6 separate people. There will be noise pollution from inside the house, the back garden, and the comings and goings of everyone who occupies it. We will want soundproofing on our adjoining wall as a bare minimum. All the residents are fully aware of the noise pollution, and don't forget the mess that comes from an HMO, as we all have had to put up with it, with the parties and the late night taxis and friends coming and going at number 9 for quite a few years. Concentration of HMOs in the area. Number 4 Newling Close will be surrounded by HMOs across the road at number 9 by being attached to number 3, and also our garden backs onto another house that is an HMO. We will be completely surrounded. If that isn't over concentration, I'm not sure what is. And there's a plan which we will show at the end as well. Safeguarding and security. For 15 years, I have been running a childminding business from 4 Newling Close. The safety and security of the children I care for is my responsibility. Constantly having different people living next door to me will be a safeguarding nightmare. I have serious concerns about who will be overlooking into my garden. The owner of number 3 has also put up security lights in the back garden which go off all the time. We also need to know if they record video as well, because this could already be impacting on our privacy and the security of the children I look after. Conclusion. Nearly all the residents of Newlyn Close have lived in the borough for their entire lives, and most of us have been in the close for 20 to 40 years. We will be deeply upset and let down by the council if you decide to pass this HMO application. We love our close and have a brilliant community spirit. We have given opposition arguments around planning, but also arguments around stopping our close having its heart ripped out to satisfy a developer who doesn't care about the impact their house will have on the residents, but only sees the money they will make. It's not right or fair. Some things are worth more than money, and that's communities and the happiness of Hillingdon Borough's tax-paying, long-standing residents. And that's on from the owners of number 4 and on behalf of the residents of Newlyn Close who have signed the petition.
Okay, thank you, Liz, and thank you to those residents that submitted that statement to the committee. So we do have a couple of other statements.
Yeah, could we just quickly show those slides that I mentioned that were part of the submission?
Okay, Meg, over to you.
Thank you, Meg. So that was the advert that was mentioned in the petitioner's submission, and there's also a plan, which is the next slide, which is there, which shows where the alleged HMOs are in the area. If we can leave the presentation up, actually, because there are going to be some more slides later on. Chairman, would you like me to read the agent's submission now for the same item?
Yeah, if we let Meg come out of that presentation.
Okay.
Then I get my grid view back. That's good.
Okay, fine. Sorry.
Yeah. No, but thank you to the petitioners for submitting all of those documents. Members have had sight of those separately as well, so they'll be given due consideration, no doubt. So should we go on to the agent's statement?
Yes, certainly. So this is from the agent. We have been instructed by our client to make a presentation in response to the objections and petition received by the London Borough of Hillingdon in connection with the above application. The applicant welcomes the comments, and the rest of the letter will cover her views and responses to the matters raised by residents. The applicant understands 9 letters of objection and a petition with 27 signatures have been received from properties raising concerns about out of keeping with residential cul-de-sac of family housing, increase in traffic and parking, internal alterations being carried out, a second HMO in a cul-de-sac will change the character of the cul-de-sac, noise pollution, concentration of HMOs in the area, safeguarding and security. While the applicant considers some of the above concerns are planning matters which have been assessed and determined by the planning department under the relevant planning legislations, the applicant wishes to reassure residents that the proposed use of as C4 HMO would not cause negative impacts to the future occupants or the close neighbourhood for the following reasons. The proposed site would meet the council's policies for the conversion of a single family house into an HMO and would not be out of keeping with family housing. There is no evidence to show there would be an increase in traffic and parking by this change of use. However, there would be sufficient on-site parking together with cycle storage, which will encourage car-free travelling as per the London plan. Although the internal alterations would not necessarily be a planning consideration, the applicant has included photos to be shown at the end to demonstrate that the property has been done to a high standard with building control letter confirming that. It's unclear whether there is another HMO in the cul-de-sac due to the lack of official data available to the public. Due to the lack of evidence to support the alleged noise pollution concern, it would be inappropriate for the council to assume this would happen. The current planning practice guidance suggests planning applications can only be determined based on material planning considerations. Local planning authority cannot preempt the future occupiers or what may or may not happen following development. However, the applicant has submitted HMO management and supervision plan and procedures to tackle the issue should that happen. According to the Council's assessment against the local area for HMO concentration, it is confirmed that such concentration would not exceed the relevant policy, DMH5. Once again, this would not necessarily be a planning consideration. However, the issue raised would be dealt with through the HMO management and supervision plans and other licence conditions. In conjunction with the above matters, the applicant believes all the concerns raised by the residents have been addressed, either through the materials submitted to the Council as part of the planning submission or the officer's assessment on the case against the relevant planning policies adopted by the Council since January 2020. On the other hand, the applicant wishes to reassure the resident that the proposed use as a C4 HMO would be under strict and professional management through a well-established management company to ensure any potential issue will be dealt with promptly and efficiently. As mentioned before, the front and rear of the property have been substantially renovated to be in keeping with the street and retain privacy for all. The inside of the property has been extensively refurbished with a completely new heating system, kitchen and bathrooms with new flooring fitted throughout and decorated to a high standard. The heavily invested property to facilitate the change of use to HMO is aiming to attract professional tenants such as doctors and nurses working at the nearby Hillingdon Hospital, who provide key services to the local community, especially in this current situation with the COVID-19 pandemic affecting everyone. However, the potential let will not be restricted to medical staff, but to other professionals who will bring a positive influence to the area. In conclusion, the applicant believes the Council has already carried out the necessary and thorough assessment of the proposed changes of use against their current planning policies and made the correct recommendation for approval. At the same time, the applicant believes she has provided extensive evidence and materials to support the application. Hence, the applicant kindly requests the Council to grant the approval of this application to fulfil the authority's duty to make a fair and appropriate decision under the National Planning Policy Framework NPPF guidelines. And that's from the agent for that application. And we did have a few photos, which Meg will very kindly share. So just to clarify, these are the photos submitted by the agent, which demonstrate the standard of the accommodation. I think there's another slide, I think, Meg. Yeah, and I think there might be one more. Yeah, and that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Liz, and thank you to the agent for sharing those statements and slides. So I think, Liz, we have a ward councillor statement to add to.
Yes, we do. We do, yes. So we have a ward councillor statement from Councillor Richard Mills on this one. He says, as ward councillor, I would like to raise my objections to the application in Newlyn Close that is before the committee this evening. I am against the proposal for the following reasons and wish to consider these as reasons for the application to be refused. Over-concentration of HMOs. This application is in contrast to our Article 4 directive brought in to prevent a growing number of HMOs in concentrated areas. Not referenced in the report despite being advised by residents, number 9 is an HMO advertised online and with an estate agent board outside it from NewPad, who manage lots of properties for Brunel University. This proposal would be out of keeping with the existing street scene, which comprises a total of 13 houses. An HMO would not be in line with the residential cul-de-sac of family housing that currently exists. The impact of converting this property to an HMO will significantly increase the level of activity and vehicle movement that will be generated. This will be a particular stress on a small close that Newlyn Close is, with only 13 properties in it. The increase that this overbearing occupancy will cause will have a negative impact on those currently living nearby. I also believe that the parking proposal is inadequate as the plan suggests there will be 6 individual rooms. As an HMO, this property is unlikely to be shared by related or combined individuals, effectively 6 independent people, and it's hard to believe that only 1 in 2 of these would have a vehicle. This is very different to if it were a family living there and they shared a vehicle. The final concern I would raise and have myself is the minimal size of actual living space outside of the bedrooms. One small living area amongst 6 people does not generate a positive level of amenity, almost forcing people to live in isolation in their own room, including at mealtimes. In parallel with this, I have concerns with the level of amenity space in the garden, considering there are 6 independent rooms proposed for the property. Enforcement conditions would not be sufficient on this application, as it's clear there would be no management or adherence to ongoing situations given the typical HMO operation within the area. I trust the committee will consider all of the above, particularly how the proposal is in direct contrast to our Article 4 directive that looks to prevent this very nature of development in a road such as this, and challenge why the already known HMO in the close has been overlooked. I object to the application and hope it is refused. That's the Ward Councillor statement. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Liz, and thank you, Councillor Mills, for submitting that statement. Okay, we've now heard from the petitioners, local residents, we've heard from the applicant, and we've heard from a ward councillor. Councillor Chamdale, you indicated that you'd like to ask some questions on this one.
Thank you, Chairman. It's unfortunate we haven't got the chance to actually question the agent and the residents, but it is what it is. My first question is about this HMO. I would like the officers for clarification in terms of we've been told there's another HMO there. It's the council are not aware of it. I think a bit like the DRS in football. We need to find out if it's there because we approve it on the plans. Now, if this information is incorrect and there is another HMO, I believe that then would exceed the figure because 15%, according to me, would lead to 1.95. So 2 houses definitely would go over that. So that's the first thing with the officers. I've got a few more, but if they could answer that for me first, if that's okay, Mr. Chairman, then I can follow up on that.
Okay, yeah, we'll come back to you for a follow-up. Meg, can you pick up that point raised by Councillor Chamdale?
Thank you, Chairman. The problem that we as officers have is that the policy states, I think, clearly that it's the council's records that we go on. So if I can turn members to page 11 and 12, it does say that it's 15% of properties within 100 metres, which are entirely occupied by full-time students recorded on the council's database as a licensed HMO, benefit from a planning permission granted or are known to the council to be HMOs. Now, the problem that we've got is that when we did our research, none of this information or the information that we looked at didn't show that there were any other HMOs in the road. So the application or the recommendation is based on that. This may be an HMO, we don't know. It may have planning permission or it doesn't have planning permission. It may be a lawful development use which has been there for quite a while. But it isn't on our records. It isn't licensed by us. So that is the only way that we know, and we don't have that information. So it isn't licensed and it's not got planning permission. So the only way that we would know is to go and check, and even if it is occupied as an HMO, I'm not sure that what we can do about it. If we're saying that 2 or 1.95, if I don't think we're going to win an appeal if we refuse an application on the basis of over concentration of 0.05. So I think 2 is the limit that we would accept in this road anyway. So even if this was an HMO, we would still believe that it complies with policy. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you for that, Meg. I was going to ask that question, but you covered it off right at the end there. Councillor Chamdale, you had indicated there's some follow-ups.
Yeah, because it's a strange sort of road, this, because they've got houses on the right-hand side, and then in the cul-de-sac as it comes round, then you've got concentration there. Where on the left-hand side, if we go on page 17 on the map, there's nothing there at all. So it is concentrated. Personally, myself, if If it's 1.95, it's 1.95. It doesn't meet it. I think we need to think. I'd like to hear other people's opinions on this, but I would like to make decisions on what we got as fact, and then if new information is brought to our attention, I bet it is brought in the last 24 hours. I believe it needs to be checked out. Anyway, parking. Now they showed 3 cars on page 183. 183. No, hold on. 184. They're showing 3 parking. Now, is that street? I've got a parking management scheme there.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, that street does have a parking management scheme operational Monday to Fridays, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. That would have been introduced to manage car parking overspill from the hospital. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you for that, Mr. Tilly. Then I would definitely say we need to put a condition that if this was to be approved, they wouldn't have no parking rights on the street. So they're saying they can supply 3 spaces, then 3 spaces it would be. Now, the other one is that we do get is these bedrooms on the ground floor. I'm concerned that whoever's got the bedrooms on the ground floor should have the parking spaces in front of their bedrooms, because you wouldn't want to be disturbed with somebody sort of driving in 3 o'clock in the morning and waking you up. That's that thing. The other one is amenity space. Now, I know the councillor concerned has mentioned it as well. What is the amenity space that should there be? Because with the bike shed, I've just found the location of the bike shed. With the bike shed as well, does that meet policy? And then I've got a couple more, but I'll let the officers go with that, please, if that's all right, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Chamdale. A couple of 3 points picked up there. A condition restricting permits for PMS, parking allocation on the ground floor, and a question over amenity space. So do you want to pick those up, Meg?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. In terms of condition restricting parking permits, generally, if we are to restrict parking permits, we would do that through 106 agreement. I don't know whether we would be able to do it through a condition. Maybe our legal officer can tell us whether a condition would suffice. In terms of the bedroom on the ground floor, generally we can cover that by way of a parking allocation. On HMOs, we don't normally have a parking allocation condition, but there is some separation. If you look at the plan on page 184, there is some separation with a planting area in between the parking and the bedroom window, although it isn't a major big distance, if you like. But there is some distance between the window and the parking space. In terms of the amenity space, there isn't a standard that we have, which we used to have set out in the supplementary planning guidance, which has been superseded by the current policy. So there isn't a set standard per bedroom, but this has quite a large garden, which exceeds 75 square metres, so it would comply even with the old standards. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Chamdale, I know you said you had a couple of other points there, but
yes, yeah.
I wanted to bring in another councillor to raise any points.
Just the last bit there, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for that. It's about 6 bedrooms, 6 people. We have in various part of the report telling us satisfactory living conditions. 6. Now, if this was a family house with six people living in there, yeah, you wouldn't have 6 cars. And this parking bit is really crucial, because 6 individuals having 6 guests, that's 12. The residents have made that as an issue, and they say they've already got a HMO in that close, and they do understand they get some noise coming from there. So I understand they're going to have some sort of supervision, but that is concerning, because 6 different individual people, the likelihood you have 6 friends coming, like I said, and the space that we got in the garden, and especially what you got amenity space inside. I'm not quite sure on that.
Okay. Alan, Tilly, did you want to come in on the parking? Point raised by Councillor Chamdale.
Yes. If I can give some background to Newland Close, all of the properties have their own driveway, and I calculate that of the spaces available, there's space to park five cars. I should add, the committee has mentioned prohibiting occupiers of the development from becoming members of the parking management scheme, having permits. This is a different situation where we prohibit people from joining, because at this property, the property is within the traffic regulation order, so they already are able to join the parking management scheme. The address of the property is part of the existing parking management scheme.
Okay, thank you, Alan. I've got James Roger indicated. I've got Councillor Dillon desperate to come in, but James has indicated, so he might,
I
help us
think there might be to help the planning committee a bit. I think the most useful thing would be if there was a condition restricting the property to 6 occupiers. So just to clarify, what they've applied for is a 6-bed HMO. And what we've learned is sometimes that if the landlord puts in double beds, the 6 bedrooms can be anything up to 12 occupiers. And that's where your car problem arises. So just to clarify, if it's a 6-bed, 6-person HMO, your officers think 3 spaces is absolutely fine and it's policy compliant. And effectively, that's that almost. But what I would recommend to committees, you may wish to add an extra condition restricting it to a 6-person HMO. Because as I say, there is it may seem a subtle point, but it's actually can be a quite pivotal one. And it is a condition we have used on other HMOs when members have been concerned about matters such as parking. Thank you, Chairman.
No, thank you, James. Right, Councillor Dillon, your moment has come.
Dun dun dun. It's back to parking. Given the size of modern cars today, and that seems to be a dated garage, could we actually get a Ford Focus in there? And then would an average person be able to get out of their car and wander out? My second point on the parking provision is if the middle car was parked in their space, would the car on the right-hand side as we face be able to get in? Or would it need to straddle the crossway? I would presume that the dropped curb is to current standards, so they can't increase the size of that. But would they have to then straddle the footpath? Given the nature of where that site is, right, I can't see the angle into which it can get into there and get safely in without disturbing. And then that's further compounded by if we allocate the parking spaces to the flats. If you know, so if one flat is someone's there already, then the other one has to knock on them, try and get it in. I know in theory it may work, but in practice, cars are all a different size, and I just don't see that there's enough space for them to get in without straddling the curb or without making some sort of fancy maneuver. The agent's plan does show that we could probably get a juggernaut in there, but they are, superficial plans. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Meg or Alan, do you want to pick up the points raised on the parking spaces? Meg?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I have got a photo of the frontage, so if I go to that, then you'll be able to see the crossover that's there at the moment.
The beauty of online virtual meetings is that I have a street view up on my PC.
So as you can see, the crossover is virtually 2/3 of the frontage. So we think that it is possible to manoeuvre into the spaces, especially as it's a lengthy garden, and so they do have manoeuvring space available to the front. So I think our highway engineers have recommended that it is acceptable because you can manoeuvre into that space with the existing crossover.
Thank you, Meg. That's correct.
Councillor Dillon, did you have a follow-up for that?
I do. Just going back to that picture, so if there was a car of a length or up until the bollard there, I can't see that a car would be able to swing into the window position, thanks Meg, without crossing over that what seems to be broken pavement already.
Thank you, Chairman. They could do it. They would have to drive with precision, but they could do it.
Can I offer some assistance?
Okay, yeah, just before we go on to Kerry, I thought, James, you were indicating there, so I'm going to ask you to come in and...
Yeah, I'm going to say something that might not help those members that are not happy with this on parking. We did refuse, the North Committee refused an HMO not too long ago in Abbotsbury Gardens. That was, and I took the liberty in terms of my preparation ahead of this meeting of printing off the appeal decision. And that was for a, so it was Abbotsbury Gardens in Eastcote, quite similar public transport accessibility. A 6-bed, 8-occupant HMO that had 2 parking spaces. Members were concerned and refused it on lack of parking, and I think members might be able to guess what I'm about to say. It got allowed at appeal, albeit the inspector did put a condition on restricting the property to 6 bedrooms and 8 residents only. But
okay,
so our appeal situation on parking, I can't help members there.
No, I'm sure members will take that into account. And I've got another number of other members indicating. But Kerry, you wanted to come in?
Thank you, Chairman. I wanted to address the parking restrictions on the road. If we were to exercise if we was to put a section 106, it would need to add in the enabling powers, section 16 of the Greater London Council General Powers Act 1974. That's the way to prohibit any parking on the road. The section 106 doesn't achieve it by itself. There was a case called Kadari, which says section 106 cannot do it, but if you add in this enabling power, it does allow the planning authority to restrict the parking. So that's one way to address any concerns with the overspill onto the road. But with, I think maybe Alan Tilley as the highway engineer, he may be able to help more specifically as to what the property can offer with regards to parking space and to ensure that it's realistic in what's trying to be with the legitimate aim trying to be achieved.
Okay.
That helps.
Thank you, Gary. We've got a number of. I'll come back to Alan because I think he's offered his expertise on parking. I think he said 5 spaces max, but I have got a number of other councillors stacking up to ask some questions. So we'll go to Councillor Ahmed Walana. You indicated. Councillor Ahmed Walana.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to make a couple of points. One is on the unknown and unlicensed HMO in that small street, which is 100 meters of the length of the street on both sides. And I believe there are only 13 properties. And I heard in the presentation that I believe in almost every property, there are maybe several students residing. If this is the case, and also number 4, they have a fostering care business. I don't know how many people are in there. Having an HMO, which is not known to the council, and having multiple people residing in those properties, I heard Meg was saying that it does comply with the council's policies, but as I'm still not comfortable on only on this base approving this application, because there will be more cars, and also 6 people residing in this property only, strangers to each other. I don't think so. Under the COVID situation, everyone tries to not to use public transport. There will be more cars. There will not be, this is my firm belief, that there will be now only 3 cars. So if you could please explore on this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We've got other councillors. I think parking is becoming a common theme here, so we'll maybe open it up. But I had Councillor Chapman, you indicated.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I did have a few questions. I have to say, Councillor Chandal covers 3 of them already. The 4th one is the parking issue. We're already exploring it anyway. As I say, I'm not raising it as a new item, but I do think in a way that's going to become the crux of this. I've got nothing to add because it's already been raised, but that's what I was going to talk about.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Chapman. Councillor Duncan, you raised your hand.
Thank you, Chairman. I think the agent submitted photographs of work that had been done, which showed the front of the property already set out. So a bit further on from what Meg showed as a photograph that had been taken presumably a little while ago. And if we could see that, I think the whole of it is clear from what I can remember. If it's possible for Meg to show us that photo again, it'd be nice just to see that. Yeah, that one. Yeah, at the bottom, we can see how that's been sort of cleared away. That you can. This is the garage where 1 car would be. There's clearly space for 2 cars at the side here. I agree that this bedroom on the left of the front door should have the parking space there. But I do think that there's sufficient parking space here. And if this meets our policy, which it does, even with the unauthorised one, that would mean that there were 1.95 properties, in other words, 2. I think if it went to appeal, that would be allowed. So I think that this person is trying to not do it as an unauthorised thing, is trying to provide decent accommodation, which would be licensed, registered. We know about it. There's control over it. And from that point of view, I would find it difficult to find a policy reason to refuse this at the present time. I think what they've done, they've submitted and tried to comply with all of our policies, and I think they've done that on a reasonable basis. I don't think that we could take away the right for them to park, as has already been pointed out. The property is already within the parking management scheme, and why would you want to do something like that? That doesn't smack of we have to behave in a reasonable way. That just smacks of spitefulness, not of, there wouldn't be any good planning reason for doing that or taking it away. So I think you would be able to get more parking on that site. As we've seen, it's now all clearly been paved and treated as a parking area. And I think you could also park in the road as well. And if you didn't, I'm sure overflow parking from the hospital would quickly come in and park there if it was open, because that's why they had to introduce the parking management scheme. So I know people don't like HMOs, and for very, very good reasons, because often they're not licensed, they're not registered, they're not authorised, they're not under proper control or management. But in this case, I think if we're to have HMOs at all, and it is close to the hospital, and as we know, a lot of nursing staff and medical staff are having to live away from their families, or have had to be living away from their families because of the corona crisis. Do we want to deny that opportunity to frontline medical staff? So I will be voting for this, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, now thank you, Councillor Duncan. Right, I've got Councillor Chandel. You indicated again.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Not quite sure I agree with Councillor Duncan's spite thing, but this is about questions that we feel that need to be answered. On the pictures itself, if Meg could bring them back up again, it's clear that going off the Councillor Dillon's comments about the agent's photographs will show, and the plans show, you could get a juggernaut in there. If Meg can put that picture up again, it's quite clear it's not a fair representation for me, because if you look at the top photograph, there's a side wall you can see there. You can see part of the garage, and then all of a sudden you've got the next photograph. There's no side wall there, and then you can see the whole of the garage. Now, for me, that's quite clear that it almost looks like a different site. If it was taken from the same position, I would say yes, okay, fair enough. Now, thank you for that, Meg. Going back to the plans on page 184, the driveway that is shown there, existing crossover, sorry, it seems a lot larger than what is on the actual pictures. Because getting those out, going off what Councillor Dillon was saying, getting those cars out when they're parked either side, I think that's a safety issue, because if they go just over if they don't go over the crossover, they're crossing over a pavement. And as the resident said, there's small children living next door, I believe they said. Now, for crossing over there, they'll be crossing over the pavement. Possibly. Could I have some comment on that?
Meg, can you pick that one up? Or Alan?
Thank you, Chair. I also was able to look at Google Earth, and I can confirm that the drawing and the actual location of the vehicle crossover are both the same. They are shown in the correct position.
Okay, thank you. We've got a number of councillors indicating here, but I do want to make sure we're not repeating areas that we have covered off. So if it is a new area, that's absolutely fine, because it's right that we scrutinise this application. But Councillor Tubadar, you indicated.
I just wanted to re-emphasize what the other councillors have pointed out, and that is the existence of a second HMO, be it that is unknown to us, but it still exists, and we have to take that into consideration as part of our decision. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Tubadar. Councillor Arnold, you had your hand up.
Thank you very much, Chairman. My concern was with the existing garage. Often properties over time will convert the garage into an additional bedroom, and I just wanted to make sure if we were to go ahead with this, that there was some condition to make sure that in the future that wouldn't be turned into an additional bedroom. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Arnold. I think we'll cover that off in the deliberations. Councillor Dillon, you had your hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I apologise for going over the same area, but it's all about scrutiny. If we were to look at the next door house, they have a very similar drive without a garage to the side, but have two, and I'm looking at Google Maps at the moment, a street view. They have two small cars parked in their driveway, one up against the front window and then one behind it. Given that the property opposite has a porch, will have some vegetation in front of it, and then you imagine three cars side by side, I can't see how the third car will get into the front window site if there was a middle car there. And for that reason, because of parking provision, I will not be voting for this item, in favour of this item.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Dillon. I'm not seeing any other councillors. Oh, Councillor Chamdale, you've got your hand up, and Councillor Duncan. So we'll go with Councillor Chamdale first.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm conscious of the time as well, because we're close on to an hour now. I think there's plenty of questions raised here, as quite rightly Councillor Dillon said about the scrutiny. I think it would be perfectly sound to defer this application so we can look at this other potential HMO. So, because if we can get, even, I take on board what Meg said, the 1.95, we went to appeal. But my concern is, what if another house tomorrow wants to do another HMO? So they will be perfectly able to do it should this application go through, because that'll be one, number 3 will be one, and that'll be another. So I think it would be perfectly sound if we could defer it, get all the facts again to us, and possibly again this parking issue cleared up. And I think that way we can then go with the consensus.
Okay, thank you. Hold that thought, Councillor Chamdale. Councillor Duncan?
Yes, on the parking provision, one car is in the garage. That's what's shown on the plans. And then the two by the side of that in front of the house. And I think if you look, you can see it's virtually sort of double fronted. Part of the window is behind that garage, and there's a small passageway, but you can see that there is space for 2 cars there. So as long as you think one car can get into the garage, then it is possible, you know, because there's ample space there for 2, and we could see that in the photograph. So it is the plans that we approve, and if the plans show that and the plans are correct, and we've heard that they are, then I don't think that we could really refuse it on that basis. In terms of the other HMO being there, yes, if there is a future application for another HMO here, then we could quite reasonably say that there are already 2 HMOs, because officers now know about this. Presumably there will be some contact with the other property that's been referred to, number 9, and some account would be taken of that. But at the moment, policy would allow us 2. This would bring us up to 1.95 to go to appeal, you know, on 0.05, I think would not be seen to be reasonable. I would think that we would stand very poor chance of success on that. So we do have to take those matters into account, but we do have to understand them within the policy terms, I think, and that's the difficulty. So that's all I have to say on that. Anyway, thank you.
Sorry, Councillor Dillon, you indicated?
Yeah, apologies, Chairman. I know we're labouring this point, and it's the last point I'm going to make on it. Yes, it's possible to get into that drive, as Councillor Duncan says, but that is at the expense of the crossing over, in my opinion, over the pavement, which is illegal according to highways. So that's why I'm kind of labouring this point. Thank you.
Okay. No, thank you, Councillor Dillon. Councillor Ahmed Walana, and then Councillor Chapman afterwards.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm quite happy to second to defer. Yeah.
Okay. I don't think it's actually been proposed yet, but we might get to that point. Councillor Chapman?
I heard that Councillor Roy Campbell proposed it.
Okay, Councillor Chapman?
I was just about to say the same thing, Chairman. I don't know whether Roy's formally proposed it. If he hasn't, I will formally propose it. There's clearly a lot of unhappy people with this application. I have to say, I've been looking on Google Earth as well, and I'm not convinced that you can get up that drop curb for the 3rd vehicle comfortably. I think we need to defer it. I think we need to get more clarity in terms of access and actual vehicular access. I will admit I'd like more clarification on the requirements to formally exclude them from the parking management scheme as well. So if it hasn't been proposed already, I'd like to propose that we defer it. If it has been proposed already, I'd like to second it.
Well, I'll take that as a formal proposal for deferral. But before I go for a seconder on that, I'd like to bring in James Roger, because I'm getting a sense that we are ticking a lot of policy boxes here for this particular application. And we've heard from James Roger that parking is unlikely to be successful at appeal. We've also had a steer in terms of conditions around limiting occupancy. So, James, is there anything you can think of here which would allow this application to be successful at appeal?
I mean, members can ask officers to go out with a tape measure and check it. What is shown, what is on the ground, actually works. So I can't necessarily argue against that. However, I am concerned that this is an application. I'm yet to hear any reason we can refuse it. And under those circumstances, my advice would be to members to look at the conditions. I agree with the condition Councillor Arnold mentioned. I think that's a good idea. And I think members could restrict the occupation to 6 persons. So I'd be recommending to members to approve it, but with extra conditions. But if members are genuinely concerned that they don't think what is on the ground measures up, then officers could go out with tape measures.
James, is there anything you can think of, because members are clearly not sort of leaning towards this one? Is there anything that you can think of in terms of what would sort of get us over the line if this were to go to appeal?
Well, members are talking about parking, and the omens are not good. I'll leave it at that.
Okay. All right. Well, I think we've just hit the hour for this one. It's right that we give it a lot of scrutiny. It's important for our residents. We do have a proposal to defer this item to get some more clarity on measuring for that access, for that crossover and that parking arrangement. So that is proposed by Councillor Chapman. Do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Ahmed Walana, are you looking to second that?
Yes, indeed.
Okay. Right, so we are moved, we are seconded for deferring this item to get some more information on that parking arrangements. So, Councillor Chapman, you move, so I take it you're for deferral?
For deferral, Chairman.
Okay, Councillor Duncan?
I don't think it needs it, but I will go with what the rest of the committee want if they want to object.
Thank you, Councillor Duncan. Councillor Ahmed Walana?
For deferral, Chairman.
Councillor Birra? Councillor Birra?
Sorry, for deferral, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Arnold?
I'll go with the committee for deferral, Chairman.
Councillor Chamdale?
I'll go for deferral, Chairman, but in addition, not just to parking, but the other HMOs, if there's another HMO there, and also to investigate the enabling powers as legal has suggested.
Okay. Councillor Tubadar?
I go for deferral, Chairman, and also the investigation of the other HMO.
Okay. And Councillor Dillon?
Deferral, Chairman, thank you.
Okay, so I make that 8 votes for deferral. Would you agree with that, Liz?
Yes, I do. I agree.
Okay, so that concludes then item 6 on this evening's agenda is deferred. Okay, let's now move on to item 7, which is the land to the rear of 511 Uxbridge Road, Hayes. Can I pass over to yourself now, Meg?
Thank you, Chairman. This application relates to the land to the rear of 511 Uxbridge Road. The existing property is a 2-storey dwelling at the moment, and the proposal is to develop part of the rear garden of the property for a 4-bed detached dwelling. If I can take members to the history section on page 22, 23 and 24, members will see that there was a previous application to develop the site. It did include the demolition of the existing dwelling, which this proposal does not. And to be fair, it was a larger scheme for 10 units, involving 2 blocks, one to the front, one to the rear. And it was refused for 11 reasons. And one of the reasons that it was refused for was the principle of the development of the rear garden area. And if I can go to that issue and the principle of developing the garden, and page 27, sorry, not 27, page 29 and 30, you'll see a number of quotes from the appeal decision, particularly on page 30. The the setting out the inspector's views on the development of the garden area. And you'll see that he does agree with the council that the development of the rear garden would impact on the character of the area. It would impact on the character of the adjoining Hayes conservation area. And therefore, in principle, your officers consider that the developing the garden area is unacceptable. Secondly, there is highways issues with demolishing one single garage for access to this, and manoeuvring issues are related to that, which are set out well in the report. And my colleague Alan Tilley may well be able to expand on that if required. So for two reasons, we are recommending refusal. But the main issue is the principle of the developing the rear garden, and that is clearly set out in our policies that it's unacceptable. It's supported by a previous inspector's decision, which relates to the character of developing the rear garden and its unacceptability. So if I can go to the presentation. As members can see, this is relating to approximately half of the site, of the existing site. There is a development adjoining, which was a comprehensive redevelopment of a number of properties on Uxbridge Road frontage, and it does include new blocks there, which you'll see in the photographs. That shows the extent of the conservation area. The yellowish hatched area is the adjoining conservation area, so it is right on the boundary with the conservation area. And this is the location and existing plan. So it's proposed to demolish this single garage here and then develop this portion of the site. And that shows the proposed layout and the dwelling house. There's no issues with, obviously, the design of the dwelling, but it's the principle of developing the rear garden which is at issue. And that's the aerial photograph. That just shows the aerial 3D version, and you'll see that there is this comprehensive redevelopment adjoining, but the character beyond that is fairly landscaped and verdant rear gardens to the rear of the site. And that is the site, or the garages, and it is this particular garage which is being proposed to be demolished, and that's within the site. So the adjoining development, the new development, is this block here. That's looking towards the frontage, the Uxbridge Road front. So this is the existing dwelling on the site. And that's the adjoining development, which the inspector was aware of when he did make the decision on this site. And that's just the surrounding. And this is just going out onto the Uxbridge Road. Thank you, Chairman. So just to conclude, we are recommending refusal on the basis of the principle of the development and on highways grounds. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay. Thank you very much for that, Meg. Liz, we have a statement from the petitioner, is that right?
Yes, we do.
Okay, can I hand over to you to take us through that?
Yes, of course. So the petitioner says, we have examined the plans and proposals, and we wish to make you aware that we residents of Elmley Drive, Hayes, still strongly contest the proposed demolition of the garage and outbuildings. We are of the same view that the proposed development will have a serious impact on our standard of living. This is a garage at and we have kept our cars there for many years. We are already congested, and this development will increase activity, traffic and parking in an already compact road. This development has really upset us, as we do not accept that the garages there are being demolished. We have noticed that property number 5 Elmley Drive was sold without its allocated garage and has been possibly sold as a deal. It is used every day by all of us, and we will want this to continue. We have very old neighbours who have been living there for more than 40 years, and they want to feel secure when parking their cars in the garage and to know their surroundings. We are strongly in disagreement for this development to go ahead, as this will disrupt the quietness in this friendly and peaceful family and children cul-de-sac. I hope that this will put a full stop once and for all to this ongoing development, as we are already stressed with this, especially our old neighbours. I hope you will take our concerns into consideration and stop this project from going ahead. And that's on behalf of the residents of Elmley Drive.
Okay, thank you, Liz, and thank you to the residents who've submitted that statement this evening. Okay, we've got no other statements to read, have we, Liz?
Sorry, no, Chairman, not on this item, no.
Okay, so we can now begin to debate this one. Councillor Chapman, you indicated.
Thank you, Chairman. I think and I hope this will be a bit more straightforward than the last one. I think it is a lot more black and white, shall we say. I cannot think of a good thing to say about the application apart from to praise the applicant's imagination, basically. It's as was said, it's a relatively nice building, but it's in the wrong location at the wrong time, and you can't get to it. I must admit, I struggle to understand how they actually propose to get access. You know, the mind genuinely boggles. I don't think there's a lot more to be said. I'm more than happy to recommend going with officer's recommendation now.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Chapman. Councillor Chandal, you indicated.
Thank you, Chairman. Quite agree with Councillor Chapman. When I'm going through the report, I mean, a power much higher than us has already spoken. He said it's not on. And about the garage and the access, the vehicles going through, I had to read it twice to understand it. I couldn't believe they're actually proposing to demolish a garage and to have 2 vehicles going in and out and pedestrians. No, I'll second it. I'll go with officer's report.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Chapman. Councillor Duncan, you had your hand up there?
Yes, thank you. It is back garden grabbing, and if we thought that the last application we had doubts about somebody driving over a drive and into a garage, well, here you've got to get everything through, including furniture deliveries, waste disposal, everything else, through the space of one garage. It just can't be done. It's you know, not on. So I'm very happy to go with officers' recommendations. Thank you.
Councillor Dillon, you had your hand up there?
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I have nothing further to add in general. Well, to be more precise about this application, I agree with everything that's been said. It's just more of a policy note question, really. For us as councillors, this is a garden grabbing, but is this a clever way of trying to garden grab by selling off half a garden and then proposing as it as land at the rear of a certain number of a property? We've seen this before, and we've reluctantly, I think, passed a couple of applications. Obviously, there have been better developments than this one, but is there anything that we can do about this in the future? Because it is, in essence, really garden grabbing.
I'm going to bring James in on that point. Is there anything anything to add to what Councillor Dillon has raised there, James?
Not really. The normal starting position is we're obliged to use descriptions and addresses applicants put on application forms. So, I mean, I think all I can say about this application is I think it's a very straightforward refusal. But I don't have to answering the councillor's question.
If I can assist, possibly, James, it is, I think, we're obliged to call it, as James says, what the applicants give us as the address. But we do look at the historical maps, if you like, and so on. and it's clear that it is part of the rear garden of this property. And similarly, if we get other developments on other areas, then we will look at previous records and previous maps to see whether it did form part of a rear garden. The fact that it's been sold off, there's not a lot we can do about that, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we have to accept that it's a development site. We can still consider it as part of a rear garden, which it was originally designed to be. And so in policy terms, I think we can still refuse it or refuse others on the basis that they did form part of a rear garden of a property.
Sorry, Chairman, there's one thing I just meant to say. We can't actually refuse this because there's been a non-determination appeal. So members are just agreeing the reasons we would have refused it for, which we will then explain to the planning inspector.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, everybody. I am moved, I am seconded. Councillor Chapman, you did put your hand up at the deaf there.
Chairman, can I just interject, please? I was just wondering if, you know, given that they've gone to appeal before, and now that we've narrowed it down to two reasons on the application, but is there anything else that we can use to maybe strengthen the council's position? Like, is the access elaborated more? Is there any issues with drainage, or what else did I make a note of?
The scheme was a much bigger scheme. So yes, it was the same land. So the reason, the simplest explanation why we've got less refusal reasons is it's only a single dwelling, this application. In officer's opinion, it really is just down to the principle being unacceptable and the access being unacceptable, hence the two refusal reasons. But I'll pass to Meg, because just to...
No, I think we are moved and seconded. Councillor Chapman, you did indicate there before we go to the vote.
I was actually going to talk later, Chairman. I was going to mention the fact that looking on Google Earth, although I couldn't see them in the photos, but looking on Google Earth, there's quite a few mature trees in the back garden, or whatever we want to call that bit of land. Assuming that we go with the officer's recommendation and this isn't allowed, I was going to suggest, is it an opportunity to see if we can put any TPOs on any trees, assuming that they're still there?
Meg?
Sorry, could I just come in on that? It is deceiving a bit, if you like. The aerial photograph on Google Earth, it looks as though there may be trees on this site. They are on the boundary, but they're on the adjoining site. So they're not part of this site, and there are no trees that will be lost as part of this development.
Okay, thank you, Meg. Councillor Duncan?
Thank you, Chairman. I would just like to take up the point that Kerry raised about the access.
You've gone back onto mute, Councillor.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Loud and clear, go for it.
Yeah, I'd just like to go back to the point that Kerry raised, because the reason for refusal about access talks about the layout of the access driveway has not demonstrated that safe, convenient and inclusive accessibility to and from within the site for pedestrians and cyclists has been provided. Well, I don't think it's been provided for vehicles either, because it's having to go through the space, one garage space, in a garage court, in a garage block. And what about delivery vehicles? What about, you know, any other kind of vehicles, waste collection, etc.? So are we just saying that it's just not good access for pedestrians and cyclists? No, I think we're saying it's for all vehicles. Well, certainly that's my view. I mean, I leave it open to other members how they feel about the access for other users, but I just think that it's not you know, good access for vehicles as well as pedestrians and cyclists. So I don't know if there's any way of expanding that to include this, and whether that could be carried forward at any possible appeal. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Meg, is there anything we can do to beef up condition 2 to include all vehicles? Or
I think
Alan,
that might be a question for Alan.
Sorry, if I can help, Chairman, I've just looked through the highway engineer's comments, and there's a point that vehicles coming out could conflict with vehicles going in and out the other garages. So basically, Councillor Duncan is right, and we need to add vehicles.
Okay.
Thank you, James.
Can I add the word vehicle
in there? Alan, you got your hand up?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. You may also wish to add wheelchair users and mobility scooter users. And another point mentioned in the report is how would the building be constructed? How would all of the materials be brought to the site to build the property? I do mention a construction logistics plan, which I consider would be challenging.
Okay, thank you. I'm not seeing any other councillors.
Yeah, perhaps we could just beef up the condition to include all those aspects if members are agreeable, Chairman.
Yeah. Okay, I'm not seeing any other councillors indicate. We are moved, we are seconded, but we're moved on the basis, I guess, now of enhancing condition 2 to include all vehicles. So if it's a natural point now to go around and take a vote on that particular item. So this is for refusal with an amendment to condition 2. So, Councillor Chapman, you move, so I'll take it you're for refusal.
For refusal with the amendment as suggested.
Councillor Duncan?
Yes, for. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Ahmed Walana?
For, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Birra?
For, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Arnold?
Yes, for refusal, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Chamdale, you seconded, so I take it you're for refusal.
Yes, Chairman.
Councillor Tubadar?
For refusal, Chairman.
And Councillor Dillon?
For, Chairman.
Thank you. Liz, I make that 8 unanimous refusals on the understanding that we also revise condition 2 to include all vehicles.
Yes, that's correct, Chairman.
Okay,
Chairman, just before you close this item, because this is a non-determination appeal, there won't be a refusal notice sent out, so there won't be an amendment, if you like, to the reason. The reasons will be set out in our report and then the minutes. So if I could ask our Democratic Services officer to clearly record that members wish to add vehicular access and access for disabled persons as part of reason 2 within the minutes, then that will form part of our case.
Thank you.
Absolutely, yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
Good.
And also construction traffic too.
Yeah, we'll get that included. So we are now unanimously refused on that one. So item 7 is refused. Okay, right. Draw some breath and move on to our third petition of the evening, which is 47 Fairfield Road, Uxbridge. And over to you, Meg.
Thank you, Chairman. Members will know this site very well because it was before members not very long ago. There was an application for the redevelopment of this site for the demolition of the existing building and the development of a flatted block on the site. It was refused for a number of reasons, which are set out in the history section on page 40. And again, this was appealed and there are a number of reasons why the inspector dismissed the appeal. The first thing to say is that he did not agree with the council on the 10%. As members will know, Fairfield Road does have a number of redeveloped sites along it, and we did refuse it on the basis that it exceeded our 10% policy. However, the inspector didn't consider that in itself this was a reason for refusal, because in this particular part of the road there wasn't a large number of redevelopments for flats, and therefore he felt that the character of the road was still maintained if this particular property in principle was accepted for flatted development. He did, however, refuse it on or dismiss the appeal on on a number of other grounds, including its design and appearance, and its impact on the character of the area. As members may recall, the design of the previous development was very different to the character of the area in itself. This particular design is much more aligned to the properties that are within the surrounding area. However, in terms of its size and scale, and also the design in particular of the side elevation and its projection towards Fairfield Road, your officers still consider this application to be unacceptable. And I would particularly go to the very comprehensive comments of the Conservation and Urban Design Officer on pages 43, 44 and 45, where they set out the very particular reasons why the design and scale of this particular development is unacceptable. I won't go through them all in full detail. They are set out very much, and again in the impact on the character and appearance of the area section as well. So we don't consider that that issue has been overcome, and therefore we are recommending refusal on that basis. If I can just take members through the plans and photographs. So this is the site plan, and this shows the extent of the area that it's located in. It is in a area of special local character, so that does need to be taken into account. And these are the existing and proposed site plans. Of particular importance, I think, is there's a particular space on this side here, and that's been encroached onto very close to the Harefield Road junction and frontage, and particularly intrudes on the space provided by the front gardens and the side garden of this property. This is the existing development, and then the proposed. In terms of its design, it is an improvement on the previous, but it still results in a very large crown roof and a very imposing side elevation, and therefore we are recommending, and you have a number of different roof lines and different roof designs, which are particularly also not in character with the road. That's the frontage onto Harefield. And these are the existing and proposed frontages onto Fairfield. And then these are just existing or proposed floor plans. And again, I would bring members' attention to the space that was previously. I can go back on the side elevation here, and the imposition of this building, which is on a larger scale, and how close it is to the Fairfield Road frontage. This is an elevated site, so from Harefield Road frontage, this will be a much higher building than 2 stories. And there you can see the roof lines, very large crown roof, and a number of roof elements, if you like, which particularly fussy. In this area, they're fairly simple designs of properties. So this is the existing, and as you can see, it is in the arts and crafts design, it's not an arts and crafts house. It is a 1950s house, but designed in the arts and crafts movement. And the adjoining, and again, they're all very simple designs, fairly simple roof lines, and then you have the space and the landscaping to the side. This is to the rear of the existing property and looking towards the back of the property. That's the adjoining property. We did refuse the application on the basis of the impact on this property. The inspector didn't consider that to be the case, and therefore he didn't agree with the council that there would be an impact. It does go some way down the garden beyond this property, but the inspector considered that to be acceptable. Thank you, Chairman. So for the reasons set out in terms of its design and appearance and its impact on the character of the area, we are recommending refusal. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you very much for taking us through that, Meg. Liz, we have a couple of statements to be read out here, don't we? We have a statement from the agent, and I believe we have a statement from the ward councillor. Is that correct?
I have in front of me a statement from the ward councillor. I don't have with me a statement from the agent. I can double check.
Okay. Oh, if you haven't got one, then we just have one from the ward councillor then.
Yeah, there's one from the ward councillor, and we have two on the following one. I will double check, but I'm pretty sure we just have the one.
Okay.
So it's a statement from the ward councillor, which reads, Chairman and members of the committee, as an Uxbridge North Ward Councillor, I wish to add my support to the petition for this application to be refused. The petitioners rightly state that the application proposal would be harmful to the general character of the area, would have an overbearing dominance on the street scene, and in particular on the houses opposite in Harefield Road, matters with which the case officer is in broad agreement, especially as regards the overdevelopment of Fairfield Road and the surrounding area. This application mirrors some mass and design features dismissed at a recent appeal. I would add that the loss of the existing building would be regrettable, and the cramped, unduly intrusive, visually prominent overdevelopment of the site would not accord with the Hillingdon local plans, parts 1 and 2. Therefore, the scale and form of the proposed building would unacceptably intensify the developed nature of this site. I ask the committee to endorse the case officer's decision and refuse the application. That's from Councillor Ray Graham.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Liz, and thank you very much to Councillor Graham for submitting your statement. Right, I've got a number of members indicating here, but before I open it up for debate, we remember this one, or some members of the committee will remember this application. It has been for appeal, and the inspector has agreed quite a lot with what was up for refusal last time. So we are looking pretty much at design and size for this particular application, bearing in mind that the inspector has actually agreed with a lot of the issues such as parking and impact on highway, etc. So that's just for members to be aware of in your thoughts. Councillor Duncan.
Sorry, can I just interject? My apologies, Chairman. There is a statement from the agent. If I can read that out, apologies.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, sorry. So the agent says, dear members, the applicant has sought to positively address the previous concerns of the council and appeal inspector with a building form that is more reflective of the local character context found along Fairfield Road. The development would appear as a larger house located on a corner plot with sufficient space from landscaping and tree planting. The building width, as shown on the submitted street scene plan, is reflective of those found in the immediate context. The design is much more detailed than more modern flats found further into Fairfield Road. The gaps retained on either side are also larger or equal to those found between flats, buildings and adjoining detached single houses along Fairfield Road. The corner aspect can accommodate the scale of the proposed building whilst respecting external views. The development also respects the amenities of adjoining properties and provides sufficient parking and cycling provision within this sustainable and accessible location. At a time when the government is seeking more housing supply in sustainable locations, this being within 350 metres of the town centre, small development sites will provide an important driver for quicker housing supply than larger schemes that take longer to build out. The provision of these smaller housing units will meet local demand and provide high quality accommodation in an edge of centre location in accordance with the London Plan and NPPF 2019. The development is not seeking to create a single house, but a reflective building that will naturally be larger, but also provides for more higher density new build housing. Any modest concerns of subjective design or corner exposure is requested to be balanced against the provision and delivery of new housing in this accessible location. Thank you for your consideration. And that was on behalf of the agent.
Okay, thank you, Liz, and may I offer my thanks to the agent for submitting their statement this evening. Okay, right, we've heard from the officers, we've heard from the ward councillor, and we've heard from the agent. Councillor Duncan, you had your hand up there to start the debate.
Yes, thank you very much, Chairman. I very much agree with this reason for refusal. I think the crown roof is enormous. It's not a feature of development in this area. Small crown roofs you can get away with in some cases, but here this is massive. And if you did put a true pitched roof on, as is the characteristic in this road of most of the properties, and in fact of large parts of the surrounding roads as well, it would be enormous. So in the reason for refusal, we have by reason of its siting in this open prominent position, size, scale, proximity to the side boundaries, it nowhere mentions design or roof treatment. And I wondered if we could include that in the reason for refusal. Certainly design, because I do think that that's a major factor. And although the inspector didn't accept other reasons for refusal and objections that we had last time, any inspector would be concerned about design and the characteristics of this building in relation to others in the area. So I would like to ask officers if we can include design and roof treatment, or just design, in that reason for refusal, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Duncan. Meg, is that something we can weave into the refusal reason?
I was unaware that it wasn't there. I'm sorry. It must have been missed out, because given the conservation officer's comments, clearly the design, including the roof design, is unacceptable, and we should include that as part of the reason for refusal. So if members grant delegated authority to amend the reason, then we can add that in. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Meg. Councillor Duncan, you okay with that?
Yes, thank you.
Good. Right. Any other councillors indicating to contribute on this one? Councillor Dillon.
Thank you, Chairman. I wholeheartedly agree with what Councillor Duncan said, and it makes you feel quite good when you think with Councillor Duncan, with all her experience, and you're thinking on the right lines as her. Megan initially mentioned position of the proposal. Could you clarify what you mean by that? Because from what I can see, well, what I'm thinking is it means position as if it's protruding outwards, and I don't think it is, but I may be wrong. Just so get some clarity on that statement.
Yeah, so I think one of the issues that we have on corner sites is corner sites generally provide an area of openness, and that's sort of supplemented by the front garden of the return frontages. So in this particular case, if I can go back to the presentation to illustrate. So the current house is sited so that it's got a large area of space to the side, to the rear, to the front. And what's happening is that the siting or the position of the new dwelling or the new block, if you like, is that it protrudes quite considerably, particularly to the side. So these are the frontages onto Harefield Road. And as you can see, it protrudes well beyond those frontages into the space. And so it's the position of that that we're objecting to, and we objected to last time, and which the inspector agreed with. The current position of the building is that it almost lines up with those frontages on Harefield Road, and therefore you have this sense of space and spaciousness around the corners, and that's a characteristic of the area, not only of this property. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Dillon, do you have a follow-up to that?
I don't, Mr. Chairman. I was thinking if Meg had said building line, I would have understood what he'd meant, but my apologies.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Chamdale, you indicated.
Yeah, I agree with everything that's been said. I was just going to ask a question about the wheelchair exit. I understand the inspector didn't really say that you must have one, but he did make the point that the developer actually look into this, because especially in terms of lifetime needs. Any comments on that from the officers?
Meg, can you pick that one up?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. The inspector, I think, was very critical of the way that the applicants dismissed the requirement for lift access in the building. And in this particular case, they did make a case which our access officer looked at, and that's set out on page 51 under the disabled access section. And the access officer considers that they have made sufficient case in this particular application to not have a lift provision, but they would still be required if we were to approve it to have access for wheelchair users for the ground floor units.
Councillor Chamdale, you okay with that? Councillor Duncan, you indicated.
Yes. Depending on other colleagues' comments, I'd like to move the officer's recommendation with the amendment of that design and roof treatment in one refusal reason one. I meant to move it before. Sorry, Chair, I forgot.
Okay. Councillor Berry, you've got your hand up there.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I think it's a very comprehensive report, and I have no hesitation of second to refusal.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Berry. I'm looking at the screen now. I can't see any other councillors indicating I am moved, I am seconded. So on that point, we can move to a vote. So we'll start with Councillor Chapman. For refusal?
For refusals.
Thank you. Councillor Duncan, you move, so I'll take it you're for refusal.
For refusal with the amendment. Thank you.
Amendment, absolutely. Councillor Ahmed Walana?
For refusal, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah. Councillor Berry, you seconded, so I'll take it you're for refusal.
Yeah, for refusal with amendments.
Thank you. Councillor Arnold?
Yes, Chairman, for refusal with the amendments as discussed.
Thank you. Councillor Chamdale?
Yes, refusal, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Tubadar?
For refusal, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And Councillor Dillon?
For refusal, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I make that unanimous for refusal with an amendment to the condition to include design of the roof. If we're happy with that, then I can confirm agenda item 8 is refused.
Yes, that's correct, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. Right. Let's now move on to agenda item.
Chairman, would you please allow 2 minutes loo break, please?
Yeah, if that's what's required. I think I don't want people sitting there in discomfort. So, Liz, is that something we can organise?
I think that should be fine. Yes, we can just have a very short break.
With the pre-meet as well, we have been sat here for 2 hours now, so I think that is probably a good shout. So, can we say 5 minutes? Would that be enough for people?
Yeah, we'll leave the YouTube stream running because we can't stop that.
Okay.
We can temporarily stop this stream and hope that everything comes back on okay when we go back live.
So
but yeah, just a couple of minutes perhaps, if possible.
Just leave it running live, Liz, rather than risk it. Just leave it running live.
We can leave it. We can do, yeah.
Come off the cameras and then, yeah.
Just to let you know, I'm back.
Thank you. I think Liz will probably
I'm back, Chairman.
Liz, we don't need to do another attendance roll call, do we?
No, I think as long as we're clear that everybody's back on the video call. Just waiting for Councillor Chandell and Councillor Borough, I believe,
Okay.
and possibly Kerry.
Yeah. Anybody watching at home, we just want to make sure that they know who's participating. But you're keeping an eye on us for that one.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Good.
Could members and officers all turn their cameras back on as soon as they're back, so we can see who we're waiting for, please?
Liz, I think it's
Yeah, so we're just waiting for Kerry. Kerry, are you there? Are you back with us yet?
Back.
That's great. So for everybody watching at home, I can confirm that all the councillors, the 9 councillors, voting members, are all now back on the video call and are able to see and hear what's going on. So, Chairman, if I can hand back to you, thank you.
Thank you for that, Liz, and welcome back, everybody. We can now move on to agenda item 9, which is 16 Fraser Avenue, West Drayton. Councillor Duncan, you were going to drop out for this one. So if you could turn your camera off and mute your mic, that would be great. Okay. So, agenda item 9, 16 Fraser Avenue. Meg, over to you to talk members through this one.
Thank you, Chairman. This is an application relating to 16 Fraser Avenue for the demolition of the existing dwelling on the site and its redevelopment to provide a new 2-storey dwelling. The existing dwelling is a bungalow at the moment. There have been a number of previous applications for the development of a new dwelling on this site, and the history is set out on pages 59 to 62, and there has been a previous appeal on the site, which is critical. Again, the issues relate to the size, scale and bulk of the development as compared to the existing and its siting within the area of special local character. And critical to this, not only the comments of the council's conservation officer, but the comments of the appeal inspector, and they are set out on pages 67 and 68. To be fair to the applicant, the scheme that the inspector considered was of a different design. This is a much simpler design, but the issues in relation to its proximity to the side boundary and its impact on the street scene and the overall character are still relevant, and the comments made by the inspector are still relevant to be considered. And we still consider that the proposal doesn't sit well within the area of special local character, and therefore it's recommended for refusal. If I can just take members through the application. So this is the site plan, and that's the existing bungalow. This is a two-storey property. This is a chalet bungalow which has been extensively altered, if you like, from what was a bungalow, and that shows the extent of the area of special local character. And this is a comparison of the existing and proposed. The dotted line you see is the existing, and the proposed is the grey shaded area. The existing building is closer to the boundary, if you like, on Lawn Avenue, but the inspector's comments set out on page 67 about the increase in its scale and size, and how that sits within the area particularly critical when he compares it to the existing building. This is the existing building, which sits fairly modestly within the area, and that's the proposed. It is an improvement on the previous design, which had competing roof lines and so on, but it is not an improvement in that it is still a very wide property. And if I go back to the, if I go forward to the proposed site plan, members will see, so these are the proposed plans. Members will see from this plan that that's the proposed, and that's the one that I think the applicant compares the proposed dwelling to, and you'll see the difference in terms of its width, its siting within the plot. It's set much further back from the Fraser Avenue frontage. It's set much further in from the Lawn Avenue frontage, and it's therefore not as large a property, not as wide as the proposed, and therefore it doesn't have the same appearance, if you like, as the and that's what the inspector was pointing out in the previous appeal, and that issue has not been overcome with this application. The existing, and these are the proposed elevations, and the comparison with the adjoining property. This is number 16 proposed and number 14. And again, those comparisons were made by the inspector as well, in taking into account the decision that he came to. These are the proposed floor plans and the roof plan. A much simpler roof plan than was previously proposed. So this is the adjoining property at number 14, and that's the application site. Sits very modestly in its plot, isn't very visible in the street scene, and then the property that the applicant is comparing his application to is this one, but your officers feel that it's not comparable in terms of its size and scale to what's being proposed here, and its impact on the street scene. And the inspector did agree with that previously. So we are recommending refusal again on the basis of its impact on the area and its size and scale and siting. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Meg. Last petition item of the evening, but we do have brief statements from the petitioner and agent. Is that right, Liz?
Yes, we do. We have a petition statement and also an applicant statement.
Also. Okay, so should we start with the petition statement?
Yeah, certainly. So the petitioner says, thank you for the opportunity to outline our concerns regarding the application. I write on behalf of Fraser Avenue and Fairway Avenue residents, Garden City Estate, which is part of the area of special local character. As laid out, the petition was signed by local residents as they relayed the same concerns that we have if this proposal was to go ahead. The concerns primarily being the structure is overbearing and the proposed depth and height cause a risk to the foundations around the properties in Fraser Avenue. As well as during and after the build, a property of this size will see a great deal of residential activities, including the keeping of cars, use of heavy machinery/vehicles, creating a lack of privacy to neighbouring properties. In the current climate, many residents are working at home. A significant bill such as this will no doubt have an impact on those residents, as they spend considerable time in virtual meetings, having a detrimental effect on their work deliverables. If we were to summarise our main concerns, they would be mainly twofold. 1. To keep any new development with the character of the local surrounding area and not detrimental to it. If the development of the above site is considered, then we request that the layout, appearance, scale, landscaping, brackets, foliage and trees, and boundary treatment of the new development is in line with and reflects the surrounding environment. Speaking to all who have expressed their concerns on the petition, they are all keen to ensure that the council considers and respects the character of the street scene of the Fraser Avenue and Fairway Avenue overall Garden City Estate. We are also concerned that the proposed property is overbearing and too large for a corner plot and will cause harm to the current scene and environment, which leads to my second main point. A build such as this on the corner of Fraser Avenue and Lawn Avenue brings significant risks to pedestrians and drivers. The corner as it currently stands is sharp, going into and coming out of Lawn Avenue, and as it stands, the entrance to Lawn Avenue is very narrow, leading to the bridge. Traffic has to slow down considerably to let cars in and out, and at present it is not too much of an issue, as you can see around the corner. It also provides pedestrians enough space to come in and out of both roads. Having a large structure will certainly restrict this, as it will block views for both drivers and pedestrians, and so we believe this will be dangerous. Finally, as proposals of different designs have been submitted several times, we feel that if this were to go ahead, further application to increase property size will be sought, and so Garden City Estate may lose its current status as of an area of special local character.
Thank you, Liz, and thank you to the petitioners for submitting that statement. Are we okay now for the statement from the agent or applicant?
Yes, so we have a statement from the applicant, and there are a few photos which Meg has kindly agreed to show at the end. So firstly, I would like to thank you all for listening to the case. I purchased this property in 2017, and since then have been trying to get planning to build a new home which better suits the needs of my family. In this current application, we have taken into account most of the concerns of the planning officer, Nicola Taplin. Regarding the neighbour's objection, I would like to point out that even the case officer suggests that our new application does not affect any neighbours adversely. We have provided a sunlight daylight report from our previous scheme, which was much larger than the current one, which proved that the scheme will not have any negative effect on number 14. I have read the Conservation Officer's concerns about the demolition of the garage and other minor issues. We could have addressed those if we were given an opportunity to alter the design. The main concern for the case officer to recommend refusal again is because of the bulk of the new house. In most cases, as per my little experience in planning, the new height or bulk of the proposed scheme is similar to the neighbouring properties. In my case, this is not being allowed, even though we are setting back from the corner and now proposing a chalet-style bungalow very similar to number 18. If you look at the properties on the opposite side, most of them are two-storey houses. I agree that the existing house is built too much in the corner and the corner needs to be open and the building front line should match number 14. But I don't agree that even after setback, it cannot be as high as numbers 18 and 14. In the proposed design, the roof is designed in a manner which will not look as bulky as number 14 and number 18. Even if you look at number 8, which is also a corner plot on Fraser Avenue, the house that was built not very long ago is quite high and dominant on the corner, but it looks nice and blends into the street scene. I request you to kindly allow this planning with any conditions on the height or the garage you deem necessary. That completes the applicant's statement. There are some photos, if Meg would be able to just show those for us. So these are just highlighting what the applicant mentioned in his written submission. So you have the view there of 8 Fraser Avenue on the corner, and then on the next one it's numbers 16 and 14 Fraser Avenue, and the next photo shows number 18, and then finally there's the view of houses opposite to number 16 Fraser Avenue. And that completes the applicant's representation. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Liz, and thank you very much to the applicant for submitting that statement. Okay, right, let's throw it open to the debate. I've got Councillor Chamdale indicated, followed by Councillor Dillon.
Yeah. Oops. Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, just on the comments of the applicant, because I remember this coming before us, and it's quite large last time. He's asked about the height and the bulk of 18 and 14. Could we have some clarification on that from the officers, please? Because looking at the pictures now, they're all sort of different sizes, especially the house next to 16 in the current form.
It certainly is a very mixed street scene, but Meg, can you pick those points up?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Number 16 is a 2-storey property, and number 18 was previously a similar bungalow to the one that is under consideration, but it was extended. It wasn't demolished and a new build. It was extended in the way that it is shown. I did, in my presentation, compare the two, and it is the width of it, how close it is to the Lawn Avenue frontage, and also how close it is to the Fraser Avenue frontage. And in terms of those comparisons, it's still an imposing structure on the corner that the conservation officer considers unacceptable. And this comparison was made previously by the inspector as well, and his comments are set out on page 67, where he does say that this is much more prominent than some of the other new builds in the street, and therefore it's going to be a much more imposing structure on the street scene and on the area than other new builds. But in terms of its size, we're still concerned about its width and its proximity to the boundaries. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Chamdale, do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, it's just that remembering last time, I think we need to find a happy medium between the applicant and what is acceptable, because I don't really want to see this coming again and again to us. When he's trying to build something, which obviously for his family, I can understand, it doesn't agree. The inspector has ruled on it, and I go with the report as well. But I think there need to be a happy medium somewhere where the applicant then say, look, we say this is what is acceptable, and then he goes away and gets a plan and comes back. I agree with the officer's report, and I'm hoping to listen to other people's comments as well. Yeah.
Was you moving officer's report then, Councillor Chamdale?
Sorry, yes, I was, Chairman.
Okay, good. Councillor Dillon, you indicated.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I agree with a lot of what Councillor Chamdale says. This is a scheme that's better than the last one. When you compare it to 1, 2, 3, 4 properties along Fraser Avenue, 5, 6 even, this is possibly a better one out of a lot of them. I mean, the number 18, I think looks disgusting, but so 16 is almost there. It's just the corner plot that I think gives it problems. And I would agree with Councillor Chamdale in saying that, you know what, we should probably look to give the applicant some guidance on trying to get this through, because the poor chap's been trying to get this through twice. It's almost there, and I think he just needs some help. Otherwise, I'm in agreement. I'm happy to second it.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Dillon. I think we'd all share those sentiments there. I'm not seeing any other councillors indicate at this point. Okay, so we are moved and we are seconded, so it takes a natural point to go to a vote. So I'll start with Councillor Chapman.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, go with officer's recommendation.
Okay, Councillor Duncan's not with us for this one. Councillor Ahmed Walana.
For the officer's recommendation, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bira.
I'll go with the officer's recommendation, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Arnold.
Yes, I will also go with the officer's recommendations, Chairman.
Councillor Chamdal, you moved, so I'll take it your for officer's recommendation.
Yes, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Tubadar.
For officer's recommendation, Chairman.
Councillor Dillon, you seconded, so I'll take it your for.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Okay, right, that's all the voting. That's 7 votes for officer's recommendation, which is to refuse item 9. Are you okay with that, Liz?
Yep, that's okay. Thank you very much,
Okay,
Chairman.
I can confirm item number 9 is refused. Okay, right, let's move swiftly on. That's all of our petition items dealt with this evening. So we will now move swiftly on to agenda item 10, which is 766B Uxbridge Road, Hayes. Meg, over to you.
Thank you, Chairman. Hopefully I'll try and keep the presentations for the rest of the meeting short. It's probably best if I just go directly to the slides on this one. This is an application for part of 766 Uxbridge Road for a change of use from retail to a mixed use comprising hot food takeaway and restaurant use. If I can just, so I thought currently it's a hair salon and it's proposed to have a takeaway stroke restaurant cafe type use in there. The proposal is in the primary shopping area. It doesn't comply with the requirement of 70% retail to be in there. It's currently it's well below, just under 60%, and this will reduce it slightly further. It is a small unit, and we are making an exception in this case for a couple of reasons. One, it retains quite a large part of the retail element of the original unit. Secondly, it's in the current situation, we are looking at our policies and the economic activity that occupying the unit might bring, and that we're recommending approval on that basis as well. So given its very small size, that's the shop unit, and to the rear is this beauty bar, and that's the unit that we're proposing or is being proposed. So it's a corner site or part of the corner site that's being proposed to be used, which is this element here, to be used as a takeaway stroke restaurant, and in this particular case we are recommending approval. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Meg. This is a retrospective application. I think members have already twigged on that one. And I will draw members' attention to some comments which are made on page 78, which I think, given the current circumstances with the pandemic, we might be seeing wording like this in future applications. Before we throw it open to members, can I just ask Meg to just clarify what we're doing about the signage? It says about the advertisement does not have permission and is at risk of enforcement. I just want you to clarify what we mean by that. You there, Meg?
Yeah, if I can just quickly clarify, Chairman, they need a separate advert consent for the signage. So the permission tonight would only authorise the retention of the use.
Right, okay, all right. That's good. Councillor Duncan, you indicated. And welcome back, by the way.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Yes, I note it is a small unit. It's not on the main part of the shopping parade. It is set back. And as has been pointed out, and I'm glad that it is, I'm sure that with the situation that we're faced, the economic situation in the country, we're going to be seeing more and more applications where we're going to be needing to make decisions, if we possibly can, to support any economic activity and to restore some kind of normality to shopping centres. So I'm very happy to move the officer's recommendation on this for approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Duncan. A couple of other people indicating here. Councillor Ahmed Walana.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Although I don't like a retrospective planning application, but it's just survival for the business and new initiative, and no loss of, I believe, retail unit. But yeah, I would like to support. I would like to support this. Absolutely.
Are you seconding the?
I'm quite happy to second this.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Councillor Ahmed Bolana. I've got Councillor Chamdow indicated, and then Councillor Chapman.
No, I just agree with what my colleagues have said. Yeah, we're pretty sound on our decision making. We don't stick it to the executive law, even if it is 0.5 or 0.5 of a percentage. Yeah, I'll go along with this.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Chapman.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I was going to propose seconding it actually, but Councillor Willan has beaten me to it. I'm very happy with this under the current circumstances. I think it's a very good decision.
Okay, good. I'm not seeing any other councillors indicate, so we are moved, we are seconded. Just the point here, I think this committee has always achieved the right balance in terms of supporting business whilst also looking after the interests of our residents. So on that basis, I will go to a vote. So Councillor Chapman.
Approved, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Duncan, you moved, so I take it you're for.
I'm for. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Ahmed Walani, you seconded, so I take it you're for.
Yes, I'm for, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Birra?
For, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Arnold?
Yeah, for, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Chamdow?
For, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Tubadar?
For, Mr. Chairman.
And Councillor Dillon?
For, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I make that 8 votes for this approval to be approved. Is that correct, Liz?
Yes, that's correct. That's
so I can confirm that agenda item 10 is approved. Thank you. Okay, let's move on to agenda item 11, which is the rear of 25 Botwell Lane, Hayes. And again, over to you, Meg.
Thank you, Chairman. This is an application which is before you because there is enforcement history on this. Quite some time ago, permission was granted for an extension to the rear of 25 Botwell Lane for the extension of the ground floor retail unit and 2 flats above. And what was built was different to what was granted permission. If I can go to the presentation, it's probably better to explain the before and after. So what was originally granted permission was for this area here on the ground floor to be an extension to the existing shop at 25, and then the elements in blue were the flats that were granted permission, 2 flats above as a 3-story extension, and then the element in green and white was a balcony area. And what happened was that these elements were constructed, the blue elements, and together with that a flat roof 3-story element was constructed as opposed to a balcony area, and therefore it led to a long-running enforcement saga, which has culminated in this application. So what's being proposed is the retention of the ground floor, which was as approved in terms of its size and its change of use to a part commercial unit and part residential. And that we consider is acceptable. And then on the upper floors, this element of the extension is considered acceptable with a different design to the flat roofed element that was constructed with balconies there. So in elevation terms, at the moment, there's a 3-story flat roofed element going across the back here, which you'll see in the photographs. What's being proposed is the removal of part of that extension and the provision of balconies to the flats and the extension to the existing flat. So you still have 2 flats above the ground floor. So these are the proposed elevations, and then this is the existing, and this flat roofed element was the unauthorised construction. What should have been there was full width balconies on the first and second floors. And so what's being proposed is a removal of part of that extension, a pitched gable roof to match the existing roof on the remainder of it, and the provision of balconies here, and that compromise is considered acceptable. So we are recommending approval in this case. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you for that, Meg. Okay, let's throw this one open for some debate. Who wants to start us off? Councillor Chambell? Just beat Councillor Duncan to it there.
Yeah, not exactly happy about it. If they built it to plan, there wouldn't have been a problem. I mean, it deviated so much away from it. So this is the compromise that we have to live with. If it is, then I would then go for the officers. Support the officers' report.
Okay, thank you. That's we'll move an officer's recommendation. Okay, thank you, Councillor Duncan.
Yes, I think it definitely improves what's there at the moment, which, you know, is a very unhappy addition, if you like. I'd like to second it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Duncan. I'm not seeing any other councillors indicate, so we can go to a vote on this one. Councillor Chapman?
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, for the plan.
Okay, Councillor Duncan, you seconded, so I take it you're for.
I'm for, Chairman.
Councillor Ahmed Walana?
For the recommendation, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Bira?
For recommendation, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Bira. Councillor Arnold?
Chairman, I'm for the recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Chandal, you moved, so I take it you're for.
Yes, Chairman, for.
Thank you. Councillor Tubadar?
I'm for, Mr. Chairman.
And Councillor Dillon?
For, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Okay, I make that 8 votes for officers' recommendations unanimously carried for approval. Liz, can you concur?
Yep, that's confirmed.
Okay, so I can confirm agenda item 11 is approved. Okay, right, agenda item 12, it wouldn't be Central and South if we didn't have a telephone mast to talk about. So over to Meg to briefly take us through what we've got in front of us under agenda item 12. Still on mute, Meg. Meg, I think you're on mute.
Sorry, Chairman. Thank you. As I say, it wouldn't, as you say, it wouldn't be a Central and South without a telephone mast. And this is very similar to previous applications which members will have seen for the removal of existing mast and cabinets and the addition of a new mast 20 metres high and some new cabinets. This is on land in front of the Renaissance Hotel on Bath Road, and it involves the removal of an existing mast and it's resiting some 13 metres to the west. If I can just go to the plans. Thank you. So the existing mast is some 13 metres to to the east of this, this is the current site, and somewhere along here is the existing mast. It's proposed to remove that together with 5 existing cabinets. It is proposed to retain 2 existing cabinets and to put a 20-metre mast in this position together with 7 new cabinets. So there would be 9 9 cabinets in all, involved, including the retention of the 2 existing ones. Members will have seen these plans. The site is not in any area of constraint, and members will have seen these plans before. This is the existing plan and the proposed site plan and the existing mast and the proposed. So this shows the location of the existing mast in this position, and then the proposed just some 13 metres west of it. That's the existing, and it comes, the new one comes towards the front of the photograph there. And it's sited in this position here. So it is a minor siting, and in this location there are no residential properties in the vicinity, so we consider its visual impact to be limited, and it is considered to be acceptable. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much for taking us through that, Meg. I know members of this committee have worked hard in terms of shaping conditions, which are included in conditions 3 and 4. Not agonised, but worked hard to shape conditions for future applications. But let's throw this open for debate. Councillor Chamdale, you had your hand up, and followed by Councillor Duncan.
Thank you, Chairman. Yep, it's good to see officers do listen to us, especially about non-standard condition number 4. Remove it within 3 months. Got no problems with it. These things are going to happen. They're working now as we want. So I would like to move officer's recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Chamdale. Councillor Duncan?
Yes, thank you. We do normally put on a condition, which I think probably might go in with condition 2, where it says that they shall be maintained for as long as the development remains in existence. And I think we then say, or we used to have a condition, which was a standard condition, that if it's updated or no longer required, that it is then removed. Because sometimes that has happened. I don't know if Meg or James would like to comment on that, but members may recall that that was a standard condition that we had. And that relates not to the removal of what is shown that's existing now, which is shown on the plans, but to what we're approving. So if that becomes outdated or superseded in any way and no longer required, that it is then removed.
Meg, can you come in on that one?
Thank you, Chairman. That is a condition that is normally put on. I'm surprised it isn't there, and I think that we can. I know what Councillor Duncan is getting at. It is normally a condition that we put on, which states that if any of the equipment that is being proposed becomes redundant, then it should be removed. And it's different or separate to the condition which requires the removal of the existing equipment. So it is a standard condition that normally goes on, and I would suggest that it is put on, given or authorities given to the planning to put that condition back on again. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Meg.
Yeah, thank you, Meg. With that, agreement, I would like to second it, but with that additional standard condition as Meg has described. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Duncan. Councillor Chapman.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, more than happy to support the application. Just from a point of clarification, page 103, 3.2 proposed scheme in the second paragraph, it refers to the existing monopole. It'll be in a similar position to the existing monopole at the back edge of the pavement siting. Now, as we just saw in the photos, the current structures are what I would call the front edge of the pavement next to the road. So are we saying that the new monopole and its attendant boxes will be to the front of the pavement by the road, or to the rear of the pavement next to the foliage, next to the undergrowth, so to speak? I'd just like to clarify the terminology.
No, thank you. Meg, can you come in on that one?
Yeah, I think that is an error, if you like, or it is sited in a similar position to the existing, so it would be towards the front or towards the highway as opposed to towards the back of the pavement.
Councillor Chapman, did you have a follow up on that?
No, I'm glad we've clarified it. I'm still just as happy with it. Just wanted to understand.
Okay. Right, I'm not seeing any other councillors indicate. Councillor Chandal. I think you're on mute, councillor.
Yeah, I just got an old report to hand. That's DMHB21 and DMHB11, I believe, which allows us to tell them to remove it as long as it's no longer required.
Okay. Thank you. Right, we are moved, we are seconded. I'm not seeing any other councillors indicate. So we now go to the votes for approval with the additional condition that we just debated. So, Councillor Chapman.
Thank you, Chairman. For.
Councillor Duncan, you seconded, so I'll take it you're for.
I'm for, Chairman.
Councillor Ahmed Walana.
For the approval, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Bira.
For the approval, Chairman, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Arnold.
Yes, for, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Chandal, you moved, so I'll take it you're for.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Tubadar.
For approval, Chairman.
And Councillor Dillon.
For, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Okay, I'll make that 8 unanimous for approval with an additional condition for removal if the equipment becomes redundant. Liz, can you confirm that?
I can confirm that's correct. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, right. Let's move swiftly on. I'm just going to turn my page here. Agenda item 13, the Hayes Tuition Centre, 52 Cold Harbour Lane. So over to you again, Meg.
Thank you, Chairman. This is an application for 52 Cold Harbour Lane, which is currently a 2-storey property. It's in use as a tuition centre stroke office, and the proposal is to change its use to 5 self-contained flats, 2-bed and 3 1-bed units, and some additional extensions are proposed, including an additional extension or an additional floor above. And it has been the subject of previous applications, which was refused for a number of reasons. Those reasons have been taken into account in this application, and have your officers now consider that the reasons have been overcome. It is subject to a 106 agreement restricting occupiers of the units from being eligible for parking permits, and we are recommending approval on it. If I can just take members through the presentation, they'll hopefully the plans are in colour, so they'll be able to tell the existing and proposed from the presentation. So this is the site plan. It is an unusual property in that it looks like it was a later addition to the street scene. The rest of the properties appear as though they were constructed in the 1920s, 30s, and this looks like a much later addition, possibly 1950s, flat roofed, and doesn't really relate to the other properties at all that surround it. So it is unusual in that sense. That's the block plan and the proposed parking layout. And then we have a number of building. And so you've got the existing and proposed ground floor. The ground floor doesn't change. And then you have the first floor and the second floor plans. All the flats comply with the national standards in terms of their size. And then the roof plan. So this shows the existing and proposed side elevation, and helpfully the color coded or colored elements are the extensions that are being proposed. They are quite substantial extensions. So at the moment there's a single story element along the side here, and it's to the rear, and then what's being proposed is a new floor above in this position, and then this extension here. And this shows the front elevation, new floor above, some changes to the external appearance, and then the addition of balconies. And then we have the side elevation and the balconies and the new floor. So all of the floors are now designed so that they don't impact. Previously, the extensions did extend some way down here, which impacted on the adjoining property in this position and the flats above the retail units on Cold Harbour Lane. The extensions have been scaled back so they don't compromise the 45-degree. They did impact in terms of privacy on the residential unit, on the return frontage along Fairdale, and again they've been scaled back so that that issue has been overcome. So we now consider that in terms of its scale, if you compare it to the street scene, you'll see that currently the property is lower. These are the photos of the inside, and currently the property is lower than the adjoining properties, which are 3 stories. Unfortunately, I don't have a photo, but these are 3 stories with pitch roof on them. This is a flat roof 2-story element. So even with a new floor on it, it still wouldn't be to the height of the adjoining properties on this frontage. So we consider the addition of a new floor to be acceptable, and also the impact on the adjoining properties has now been considered, and therefore it complies with the 45 degrees, and we now consider the application to be acceptable. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, no, thank you very much for taking us through that, Meg. Right, Councillor Duncan, kickstart the debate on this application.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Yes, I think that I was concerned about the height, but when Meg told us about the adjoining properties, I think this will fit in with that height, which is the only consideration. I think it will tidy up the building and give it a much more attractive appearance with the balconies, and it will provide much needed housing. So I'm happy to go with officer's recommendation. I'd like to move it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Duncan. Councillor Chapman.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I'm more than happy to second it. I'd just like to clarify a few points as well, though, if I may.
Yeah.
I couldn't find, possibly it's there and I couldn't find it, but I couldn't find any reference to amenity space. Can officers clarify what amenity space there is for this? Because obviously there's none within the building itself, unless, of course, they're referring to the balconies, and I'm assuming that they're referring to more than just the balconies. In terms of the balconies themselves, can we condition it that they have to have frosted glass? And last but not least, my third thing, again, it's parking. Obviously, there's only 2 parking spaces for the 2 flats with 2 bedrooms. Am I right in assuming that, given this is a Cold Harbour Lane address, that the residents, or none of the residents in this, would be eligible for the, what's the name? Fairfield Gardens parking management scheme around the corner? That's it. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Chapman. Meg, a few points raised there. Can you cover those off? Take yourself off mute.
Sorry. In terms of the parking management, they wouldn't be eligible for permits in any of the management schemes that surround it. So whether it's Fairdale Gardens or Cold Harbour Lane, we'd restrict it to any of those roads that surround it. In terms of the amenity space, the only amenity space that is available is a balcony or balconies to the units, and there's no ground level amenity space, although this is a town centre location, and we do say that in town centres we would accept units which don't provide amenity space. So we have said that or taken that exception in this case. It is located quite close to a public amenity area, so again that's a consideration that we've taken into account as well. So we are recommending approval, although in numerical terms it wouldn't comply with the amenity space provision that would normally be required on site. Thank you, Chairman.
Meg, can you cover off the point around frosted balconies?
The balconies are all situated so that they wouldn't overlook the adjoining properties. So we can add a condition, but I'm not sure there is a requirement, because they're either fronting onto Fairdale Gardens or they're fronting onto Cold Harbour Lane. So the balconies are situated such that they're not overlooking any adjoining properties.
Councillor Chapman, did you have a follow-up?
No, that's fine, Chairman. Thank you for clarification.
Okay, thank you. I'm not seeing any other councillors indicate, so we are moved, we are seconded. So on that note, we'll go to a vote. Councillor Chapman, you seconded, so I'll take it you're for officer's recommendation.
For, Chairman, yes.
Councillor Duncan, you moved, so I'll take it you're for.
For, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Ahmed Walana.
For, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Borough.
For, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Arnold.
For, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Chandal.
For, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Tubadar.
For, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Dillon.
For, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, I make that unanimous 8 votes for approval of agenda item 13. Liz, can you concur?
Yep, that's confirmed, Chairman.
Okay, agenda item 13 is approved. Okay, right, let's go on to the last part 1 item of the evening, agenda item 14, which is 1 Riverside Cottages in West Drayton. Meg, can you take us through this one?
Thank you, Chairman. Very quickly, this is an application for the change of use of a couple of buildings within this site for the sale of motor vehicles and for contractors' plant storage. They both were previously in use for part. It's a car breaker's yard, and they were in use in conjunction with that. There are no external alterations proposed, and therefore the change of use wouldn't have any impact on the greenbelt. So the site is situated within the greenbelt, although it is a developed or very much a site that's in use for car breakers and car-related activity, and therefore we're saying that given the minimal impact that it is acceptable. If I can just go to the presentation. Thank you, Chairman. That's the overall site, which is the car breakers and so on, and the 2 buildings, and that shows the constraints. It is in the greenbelt. The 2 buildings that are being referred to are in these situations here, and they'll be here we go. So it's this particular building here and this one in this area here. So those are the 2 buildings that are being changed to in industrial use and a storage use. So we don't consider there being any impact. The aerial photograph shows considerable activity on the site and the overall larger site, and the change of use of these two buildings within the site. And this is the site itself. The two buildings within the site would have no impact on the greenbelt or the adjoining occupiers. So it is recommended for approval. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much for that, Meg. Okay, let's. I've got a couple of councillors indicating there. Councillor Ahmed Boulana, you was up first.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With no impact on the civic amenity, and I think this is the best use of the site. So I would like to go with the officer's recommendation. Okay,
thank you, Councillor Ahmed Boulana. Councillor Duncan, you had your hand up there.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I mean, it's much better than the use of this site is much better. They've been storing cars on it for a long time, new cars. And so I think these uses are fine. As a car breakers, it was much more noisy and intrusive and unsightly, and at least it's now tidied up and cleaned up. So I would go with officer's recommendation and move it. Did Councillor Boulana move it? If he did, I'll second it.
So you're seconding it, okay.
Thank you.
Not seeing any other hands up, so we will go straight to the votes. And Councillor Chapman.
Thank you, Chairman. For.
Councillor Duncan, you seconded, so I'll take it you're for.
I'm for, thank you.
Councillor Ahmed Boulana, you moved, so I'll take it you're for.
I'm for, Mr. Chairman.
Good. Councillor Birra?
For, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Arnold.
Chairman, for.
Thank you. Councillor Chamdal?
For.
Thank you. Councillor Tubadar?
For, Mr. Chairman.
And Councillor Dillon?
For, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Right, Liz, I make that unanimous 8 votes for approval of agenda item 14.
Yep, that's correct, Chairman.
So agenda item 14 is approved. Okay, that brings us to the end of the public part of this committee meeting this evening. So I'd like to thank everybody who's been watching on YouTube, and on that note, I'll ask Liz to cut the YouTube feed.